Well, welcome to chapter 4. I'm going to discuss making decision in C++. I have already introduced relational operator. Relational operator is very similar to mathematical operator that we use during the regular math, not during programming. During programming, mathematical or math operations are different. Some of them are very similar to what we do while we are doing math. Some of them is a little different. But relational operator, for example, in here we can start with greater than. We had it in before lectures, like in other lectures before in the labs also, and I'm gonna just go ahead and practice in more example today as well. Greater than, less than, greater than or equal to. Although we call it greater than or equal to, but we don't use any sign for or, okay? We just call it greater than or, means at the same time both of them are valid. Some value in here, suppose that for example x and y, x could be greater than or equal to y, means two conditions are valid at the same time. Same in here, less than or equal, equal to, and not equal, okay, not equal. Remember, we never use only a single equal sign as an equal. If you use only a single one like this means assigned. Assigned to means, for example, x is assigned to 2, for example. Anytime you want to have it to act as an operational sign, then you have to just, or let's say relation or operation or something like that, or even for math, you have to use two equal. You have to say equal, equal in order to make two things to become equal. In order to say, for example, x is equal to y, means any number in here should be assigned to, means is exactly the same number in here. But in here, x is assigned to 2. It's a different operation. So, some examples right in here, then we will move to Visual Studio. Like for example, I'm gonna have, as you can see in here, 12 is greater than 5. It's true, but 7 is not less than or equal to 5. So this is a false statement. This is a true statement. Now, if we are going to put this in code, we have to make it conditional. And that's when, in order to make something conditional, we have to use if. The whole thing becomes if a statement. We call it if a statement. If a statement means a conditional situation. So I would say if x is 10, then x is equal to 10. Then this is a true condition. X is not equal to 8. I have to say if x is not equal to 8, then this is true because x is 10. X not 8, then this is true. And x is equal to 8, again is false. Why is false? Because I already said my x is going to be 10. So if I make it equal to 8, it's a false condition. Considering that, now I'm going to say something can be assigned to something else. Maybe a variable can be assigned to an integer, or another number with decimal, or maybe one variable to another variable. We can assign one variable also to another variable. That one is also correct. In that situation, we have to say, for example, x or is less than or equal to y. This is one statement. And then I want this to be assigned to a result. This result can be another variable as well. Another thing I want you to consider is just more definition of if a statement in order to start. Look at here on my screen, I already have the template, which we have practiced last session, but I'm going to add more detail right now. So let's go ahead and start creating if a statement. In order to do that, I can just use one example like if it is raining, I'm gonna move this to the other side. You can see my screen better. If it's raining, take an umbrella. This is a conditional statement. How do I put it in flowchart? I would say I'm gonna have something as my input to go here. This is going to be my input. Anything in here is going to be my output. So I do have some input for a flowchart and I do have some output from that certain flowchart. How do I do it? For this certain example on my screen, I would say if it is raining, take an umbrella. Or if it is cold outside, wear a coat. Let's put this one in flowchart. My input in here is gonna be if it is cold outside means this is my input, right? This is my input. If it is cold, there should be two situations. Is it cold first or it's not cold? If yes, it is cold, move to this side of the flowchart and wear a coat. If it is not, simply exit the program. Suppose this is a program. Two situation, yes or not, or true or false. Instead of yes or not, you can say true or false as well. If it is true, is cold, then have your jacket on or coat on. If it is not, exit the program. Another one in here. If this is just a little bit more detail, if it is cold outside, still if it is true is cold, go to this side of the flow chart, have your coat, have a hat, have a gloves. All of them could be included under the same statement. If not, simply exit the program. That's what we call it if a statement. Now you have that understanding. Let's move to Visual Studio and create one simple example including if a statement. I'm going to clean up here. I'm going to clean up the whole thing in here. So remember I said always we start with hash include IOStream. We use using namespace to avoid repeating the std. And then we start with creating main function. Now I'm gonna create just some space in here to learn how do I use if a statement in C++ programming. We always supposed to start with if. Suppose this is going to be a simple statement, so I have to just simply like regular writing, write if. The color definitely will change. Make sure it's not gonna stay black. If it is black, something should be wrong. Then any statement, any condition or anything, for example, like for example, if x is assigned to y or whatever goes inside parentheses. And then right after that, you have to include all the statements or all the condition. Any conditions that you have to include it underneath. That's how we put together some if statement. Any statement you are going through is either true or false. That's why there are situations that you can say if this is true, go to the next step. If it is false, just exit the program. Now, how do I do that? Let's practice one. For example, I'm going to get the average of 3 test scores, right? So how do I do it? Initially, I start with include IOStream, right? And of course, in this example, I'm going to include IOManip as well. Practice with me, please. IOManip. Who can remember what was IOManip for? You have to say hash, include, and then include IOManip. What was the reason for that? Why do I use IOManip? Any idea? Just to clean up the screen. Yes, just clean up the screen, maybe, for example, have a better display, customize my display. In order to customize my display, I use IOMani. Now, right after that, I'm gonna start with just defining three variables for my three numbers. Since my variables are going to be just simple integer for this example, I'm going to use integer. Maybe S1 means a score 1, S2 for a score 2, and S3 for a score 3. These are the three test scores. I'm going to hold three test scores. So I use three variables right in here to define them. So then I'm gonna just close this line with semicolon to avoid any error. And now I need another variable in order to hold my average. How do I do it? Since usually when we are taking average of few numbers, we usually do have decimal point. Therefore, I'm gonna use double. Double any variable. I'm gonna say average, right? Right after that, now it's time for me to define the three test scores that I did in here being displayed. Simply means see out. I'm gonna see out. How do I do it? I should say see out. I'm gonna get the see out. But in order to do that, I'm gonna leave myself a message right in here. For example, I'm gonna say enter three numbers or whatever, right? Right after that, I'm gonna just leave myself a colon, not semicolon, a colon, a little bit of a space, just to make sure that my display is gonna be nice and neat. And then I'll close it with semicolon. It's totally your option to even give it an L or backslash N to move to the next line, or in this case, since I want my number to be printed out right in front of the colon, that's why I don't add and L or backslash N. I want my C in from the next line to be printed right after this line. So I would say C in S1, and then do I need to use the cin command over and over for each of my variable? No. I can say cin S1, S2, and I can repeat the same with S3 and simply semicolon. This way, I do have option to enter all three numbers using the same command. I don't need to repeat the cin means line 12 right in here over and over. Right after that, it's my time to calculate. Since I am looking for average, definitely I need some calculation. I need some mathematical operation. So in order to do that, of course, I have to use equation for average. How do I get average of few numbers, whatever number? For example, I'm gonna say I already defined my average as a variable. I'm gonna assign it, not equal. Assign it, open your parentheses, and then mention S1. Why do I put them in parentheses? Any idea? Who knows why I put them in parentheses? Because somebody is answering. Let me first check that. Order of operation, 100%. Yes, 100% correct, Ryan and Kevin. I put them in parentheses because I'm planning to use division in here because I'm getting average of three numbers, then I have to say divided by 3. And since I'm using division, if I don't, then I'm going to have some concern about order of operation. And of course, anything inside parentheses is going to have the priority. And since I want this 3 number first to be added up, then the summation being divided by 3, that's why having parentheses is just a guarantee for my correct mathematical operation. It's time, it's time to see out now. Now I would say see out. I'm using fixed. Anyone who can remember why do I use fixed? We already discussed. Somebody say why we use fixed. While I'm typing, think about it and answer my question. Why do I use fixed? Why do I use show point? Both of them are from previous topics. Think about them. Leave them on chat for me. Point, no, fixed is not for, fixed is for number of decimals. Pater, do you mean numbers? If you means number of decimals, yep, that's the correct answer. How about show point? Who knows why do I use show point? And then set precision. Answer these questions as well. Help me. What's the benefit of show point? What's the benefit of set precision? And remember, when I'm doing set precision, I open parenthesis and I order it. Means I'm gonna ask how many? Just one in this case. It could be any other numbers in other examples. Anyone? Set precision is helping with what? Remember, we were creating tables and then we were just practicing, like for example, how many number of decimal we want. If you want 3 number of decimals, like for example, let me leave a comment here. If you want different number of decimals, you can adjust it using set precision. For example, you can say, I want only, for example, the average to be 3.2. Since I do have 1 in here, it's gonna just consider 3.2. But in case if this is 2, then if your average is like, for example, 2, 3, 5, 6, it will print out for you 3.23 because you have 2 on the set precision. It will consider this 2 for you. If you have 1, then it will consider only 3.2. That's why I use set precision. Show point is for the situation that you do not have any decimal number and still you do want it to be considered, then it's going to give you 0 instead, but it will show it as a decimal format. Like for example, in here I can say 3.0. Also 3.0 is equal to 3. Still is showing it as a decimal point. That's why. Now I'm gonna just print out my average. I already cleaned up the screen, so this line is just cosmetic line. It's not technical, it's just giving me a better display. Next, I'm gonna call the average. What's the average number? So I would say cout. I'm gonna leave a message for me. I'm gonna say the average is, and I do have option to push it to the next line or not, just right in here. I'm gonna leave it right in here. So I'm gonna say, get it from this calculation, which is average, right? And if I close it, my line is not gonna move to the next one. If not, and say and L eval. So now it's time. So far, whatever I put together right in this example is a summary of other lectures. And it's time to learn something new, which is if a statement, and it was just today's lecture. I'm gonna start, how do I use if? Please pay attention and practice. Even if needed, do mistake on your own screen and get me involved to help you to fix it. So anytime I'm gonna look at, I already calculated my average, and I'm gonna look at the average and see if that average is my desired average or not, then I have to use if. If call the average number. Remember I said when you use if, you must open and close parentheses and then call the average and put it in a condition. For example, I'm going to say if average is above 95, another important factor, pay attention. In the line that you are defining your if, you must not use semicolon. If you add semicolon in here, you are going to get error. Also, most of other lines in C programming, you have to close it with a semicolon. but not the line starting with if. So you just leave it as it is and move to the next line and see out. See out any other messages that you want to say. So I'm going to say if my average is above 95 or if my average is greater than 95, give me a congratulation message or so on. And then this is because this is going to be the best score possible. So I'm going to make this one to become a message like that. Anytime I'm going to use a message like that, either I can use and L, but for now I'm going to use \n because I already practiced and L. To remind you, \n always is inside. Means is before semicolon, right? It's inside before semicolon. I put it as \n to move to the next line, and simply I close. All we learned is if a statement. Look at here. All we learn is my if statement. I'm gonna say return 0 and I'm gonna close. Before I debug, I check everything. I see my green mark and I'm ready to debug. Hopefully everybody can do the debugging process. Expectation is a pop-up question asking me for 3 numbers, and then considering those 3 numbers, do the summation divided by 3, calculating the average, and then comparing that average with this line, which is if average is above 95. Let's practice it together and validate our code. First thing first is correct. It's asking for numbers. Suppose I'm gonna ask for 5, for maybe 7, and I'm gonna ask for 9. Then hit enter. Immediately we'll add them up and then we'll calculate the average. And since average is 7, the average is 7, I'm not gonna get that congratulation. Now I'm gonna repeat because it's exit. Remember I said it will check, and right after it is checking, if it is true, it will go to the next step. If it is not true, it will exit. Since the number I gave to the code, it was not like maybe in a range of my request, it just exit. Now let's give them a true condition. True condition means, for example, I'm gonna say 94, I'm gonna say 98 and 99, and let's see what will happen. That one is a true condition. Therefore, as soon as the average is displayed, average match line 20, which is if average is above 95, then move to the next line. And next line is see out congratulations. Everybody did it? How many students practiced this and got the same result? Give me some feedback. If anyone needs support, please ask. I'll be more than happy to help you. Good. Then let's move to the next one. So hopefully everybody so far learned how to define an if statement in C++ programming simply and customize our request from a calculation. Let's look at another flow chart. Here I'm going to see, this is exactly like analysis of what I do have right now on my Visual Studio. I'm looking at the average. I'm validating the true situation and false situation. I already did them experimentally and I show you true situation is printing out congratulations, and the false one, it was just exiting from the program. Now, we already practiced this one. It's time to just learn about floats and doubles. Floats and doubles, both of them are dealing with decimals. We have this discussion one more time. Both of them are for the situation that we are not dealing with just integer. We are dealing with numbers plus their decimals. That's why we can use either floats as a data type or doubles as a data type. Difference between them is coming from their size, the size that they are borrowing from the RAM, right? So now, this is one thing. So we have to make sure that we don't use them for equality. Another thing I want you, 0 is false. 0 means if, for example, in a like average calculation like the one in here, if the average is 0 means we are not above that statement, therefore it is a false situation, simply means it is getting out of the program, if that's the case. So far we learned about if statement. We learned how do we define it, just in a single statement. But there are situations inside this statement, this if statement, we want to include more information. And that's the time that we have to write after here if we have more than one condition. We have to just add, let me maximize, we have to open a bracket, a curly bracket, and include all of the information inside this curly bracket, right? And that's only when we are looking at more than one condition. Means it's not only true or false, or one true or false. In that situation, we have to create a block, which is like here. We have to open our bracket and include all other conditions and situation and a statement inside. There are situations that we want to use two a statement. If the weather is cold, wear your jacket. Instead of otherwise, in regular human conversation, in machine, we say else. If weather is cold, get your coat. Otherwise or else, just leave without the coat. We can just have that statement inside programming as well. A structure is very similar to when we have one condition. I'm going to remove the brackets like this. But right after this, if average is above 95, print out congratulations. Else, for example, I would say else. And remember, for else, again, we do not use semicolon. If we do, we are going to get error. Else, I'm going to say see out. Maybe try again, or something like that. This is what we can ask from the program. We can say if average is above 95, say congratulations. If it is anything less than 95, say try again. This is what we call it if else. And this is the general format of how we practice if else condition. Let me just go ahead and try this again as an example to show you the functionality of if else. I'm going to go ahead debug again. I'm going to give it numbers that I know my average won't be 95. Let's say 75, maybe 58, and 46. Look at here. Since my average is not above 95 or greater than 95, it will skip the congratulation and it will move to the else condition, which is try again. Make sense? So it will skip the true condition and it will take care of the false condition. False condition in this situation is, I said, I want it to be try again. Next, I'm going to show you how do you guys, this is what I just did. How do you guys create a nested if? We have multiple methods for creating conditional statement. So far, we learned only if. We learn if with multiple condition. If with multiple condition means I have to create a bracket and put those conditions inside the bracket. And we learn if-else condition. And it's time now to learn nested if. Nested if means multiple if condition. One is gonna stay as the leader, the rest is gonna be just underneath. Let's practice that one. So I'm gonna have one if inside another if, and that's what we call it nested if a statement. In this situation, I am going to take care of more than one condition. I'm going to compare more than one condition. And all of them still is going to be under the initial condition. Let's practice this. For example, as a flowchart first, I'm going to look at some people who are employed. And then if people are employed, if the answer is true, I'm going to go to this side of the flowchart. If people are not employed, they are jobless, I'm going to look at here. I'm going to ask the program to see if people are employed, then look at their graduation time. What's their graduation year, right? And then if, for example, based on the situation, if they are qualified for a special interest rate, go to this side of the flowchart. If they are not graduated recently, then just exit, right? They have to be graduated. Just exit the condition. This is the statement that we are going to create. So let's just look at the full program. To make it easy, I'm going to keep this simple example that I have. I already created one if average is like that. Then I said else, get this. Or I can just create the one in here for you, which is this program. So I'm going to say if employer let's calculate the average. This is much easier. If average is above 95, I'm going to say now, see out congratulations, right? First thing first, since this is nested, I'm going to put it inside. So I'm going to take all of this to show you how to easily create nested if. So first, say if average is above that, if another condition. Another condition means another if. Another if means another parenthesis in here. If average, like for example, if average is assigned to maybe 97, right? I'm going to create a nested if. Then I'm going to see out is equal to 97. Then I'm going to see out. This is nested if, therefore I have to create another bracket. Then I'm going to say see out. Congratulations. Right? And backslash n, and then I'm going to get out of here. This is my nested if. So means I created first condition to look at the average to be 95. Now, one more time, see, it is above 95 and I want it to be equal to 97. If it is 97, say congratulations. Else, remember I said nested if means one if is inside another if. Means you are going to validate the second condition if initially the first condition is valid. Else, I'm going to say, repeat again. For the else also, I'm going to open bracket and I'm going to say see out. Try again or repeat again. Else say try again. This is going to be considered as nested if in an easy situation to make sure everybody learn it. So I just simply defined one condition and I created another if right underneath. At the same time, not only I'm using if else statement, I'm using if nested as well. That's what we call it, nested if. Now, I can make it a little bit more complex to give you more practice. Remember, for the if else inside, I do have if else. Can I have another else for the if? Yes, I can. Right after this, I have to get out of this bracket. I can, if I want, add another else in here. So first check average is above 95, then check if average is equal to 97. If it is not equal to 97, try again. Else, else means generally average is not even above 95. Then in that situation, go ahead and see out. So this is my first if else. And then else, and then I need to close that right in here. That's why I got this error. And then else, see out, study better, or something like that. Backslash. So what I created in here is if, nested if. First, this is nested if, this is if else, and then if else nested. Now I'm going to show the whole code. I'm going to minimize. This is the whole code. Look at my screen. I do not have any error. I've got my green check. And now it's time for me to go ahead and debug. You may want to practice with me. We created a simple example to implement all three conditional statements that we have practiced. If else, nested if. So I'm going to start with true condition. True condition in this case, I'm going to make sure that I have 95 above average and I'm going to get the 97 as well. It's not easy to ensure, but let's try. So I'm going to give it three numbers, one of them 95. If I want it to be 97, I'm going to use all of them 97, 97, 97 to get the true statement to move to the nested if. Then, since I have all of them 97 divided by 3, average is 97, I'm just finishing inside the nested if. That's why I get the congratulation. Now, if I don't want it to be exact 97 and get out of here and reach here, I have to say one more time because I want to read the else as well. Still, I'm going to be above 95, so I would say 95, 96, maybe 97. I'm above 95, but not exact 97. That's why I get out of the if and I touch the else condition. Else condition is try again. Now, in case you want to touch the second else, you shouldn't be even greater than 95. Then your program will reach this step. Otherwise, if it is meeting this condition, right in here, it will exit. If it is not meeting this condition, then it is checking next one. If it is meeting next one, then it will stop right in here. And in situation, it doesn't meet neither of these two, then it will move to the next one. Let's try that one, which is the last condition. We shouldn't be above 95 to touch line 31. Means, for example, 91, 90, 88. Definitely, we can see a study better. Everybody got the point? How we can have multiple conditions under the same if, call it nested if. Anyone who needs extra explanation, feel free to ask. Clear? Some feedback, please. Perfect. Thank you. So then I'm confident to move forward and ensure everybody is comfortable with the situation so far. I've already practiced if, else, if. If, I already practiced if, else, and if, else. It's time to give it another twist. And not only have if, else, else, or if, else, else, have another if right after, maybe, for example, in here. We are going to give it another spice right in here. Let's do that. We call it if, else, if a statement. In this situation, if, else, if means just go ahead, check average to make sure it is above 95. Second one in here, I say check it to ensure that it's equal to 97. Now there are situations that I'm going to just go ahead instead of just a spin stuck in here or finishing in there, I'm going to say if, else, if. So I'm going to remove this one, make it if, else. The reason for just this spin underlined red is exactly this bracket. If I remove the brackets, number of brackets in here, then the issue will be resolved. So first I'm going to say if average is above 95. Then I'm going to bring that back. Then do what? Then see out congratulations. See out congratulations. Okay, this is going to be my first if. Else, I'm going to say else if at the same time. Else if, I don't need this one in here. This one is extra. This one is extra. And this one is extra. Then go ahead and say else if. Then I can say see out. And I don't need this one. And I don't need this. Else if, see out, try again. Right? So if average is above 95, say congratulations. Else if, first give it some expression, like for example, average is equal to 90. Then say out, try again. Let's practice this one now. This is how we create if, else, if a statement. Do I need to have bracket in here? Is it mandatory? No. If I am just looking at one condition, I don't. If I remove it, still I won't be in trouble, technically. Okay? But if I have multiple conditions and one should be before another one, then I must include curly brackets. So I can have it or I can avoid it if it is only one condition. So I say if average is above 95, see out congratulations. Else if means otherwise. If average is 90, then say try again. Let's practice this one. So let's give it a few numbers to ensure it is moving to 25, line 25, which simply means I have to make sure average is 19. In order to make sure average is 19, simply I have to give it 319. And then I can say, okay, it is not see out in congratulations since it is not above 95 and it is equal to 90. Still, it's giving me a message which is try again. Make sense? How do I use if, else if condition? Perfect. Next, I'm gonna show you, this is exactly what I did right now in the screen. I'm gonna just talk about some flags. What are the flags? Before that, I'm gonna pause for a minute or so and give everybody this chance to ask any of your questions before I add a little bit more. Anything? Anyone who needs my attention, feel free to ask. Perfect. So there are situations that variables are in a signal or condition, means they are flagged. Usually, if we do have bool as a data type, remember I said we have multiple data types such as integer, float, double, long, short. Another one is bool, standing for boolean. It's a data type. Any variable which is assigned to a boolean data type, we can just use it as a flag. So we can say any situation which is false means it is 0. Any situation it is true means it is 1, right? False is always like 0, true is 1. Or we can say false is like off, true is like on in different situation. If you are looking at automation system, when we are defining a true and false, we say if it is 0, do this. If it is 1, do that. If you are designing an automated system, or if you are programming a PLC or something like that, in a maybe more advanced courses later. Let me just a little bit explain about application and why I am explaining all of this, why you need to understand this basic programming. If you guys are from automotive program, if you guys are from automation program, either of them, definitely you are going to look at automated system at some point. You are becoming an engineer in either of these fields, and then you are going to program some sensors, or let's say some automated system. Automated system always work with conditional statement. If you don't know how to define conditional statement, regardless of what you are using, there are situations you guys are using PLC. Definitely PLC programming is a different language, but still it has conditional statement. Or you are using, like for example, microcontroller. Microcontroller is an embedded system, means a combination of hardware and software communication or interaction. In that situation, you need a program in order to program that microcontroller for that automated system. It could be, for example, a part of your dashboard in the vehicle. It could be, if you are automation students, it could be maybe a robot that you are going to, let's say, Siemens, let's say KUKA, let's say ABB robot. Any of those robots, you need a language to program them to move their arm based on your application. Or if you are automotive, you need to program, let's say, your signals in the vehicle to turn on and off in an order with your conditional statement. That's why you need programming. That's why if you learn it right now, when you are going to more advanced courses, you have that basic structure of how to program an automation system, regardless of what's the application for that automation system. That's the application, and definitely knowing it is giving you more motivation of why I need to learn this stuff. You need it because this is a major part of engineering. Engineering nowadays is kind of being able to create more automated system. More automated system means less human interaction. Less human interaction means more beneficial, effective in terms of cost effective, time effective systems that can give you more advantages. That's why you need to know how to do programming. So far we practiced some conditional statement. That's not all. There are lots of other conditional statement that we are going to learn them gradually, but still at this point, let's look at logical operator. So far, I just talked about automation. Even I touched PLC programming. PLC by itself is a language, definitely totally different than C++ or Python or C. It's by itself a different language using sometimes even ladder diagram. Definitely you are going to have it in other courses later. Either myself or other colleagues will help you to learn PLC programming. But at this point, either digital electronic or PLC programming, you are going to require learning about logical operator. So logical operator is more about digital electronic. Digital electronic is asking you to create relational expression using and, or, not, nor, and many more. We don't practice all of them in this basic course, but at least the essential one for you to learn is and, or, not. If you are going to just write them down as a question for the user, definitely you can simply use and. If you are going to, for example, put them inside the C++ and you are going to address and, you cannot type and. And is not something that C++ can understand it. In that situation, I'm going to leave it as a comment in here. You have to use two back-to-back and operator. We call them and operator to show and. If you show only one and operator, this one is not doing and, is doing address. So if you have it one, it becomes like asking for the address, and we will practice it in other lectures, next lectures. But if you want to address, for example, X and Y in that situation, this one means using two and back to back is helping you to use it as an and. Same for or. For or, you can use just the line is just above the backslash on your keyboard. You can hold your shift and your backslash key on the keyboard, and it is giving you two of them back to back. It's giving you or. These two together stand for or. And if you are going to use not, then this is standing for not. These are what we call them logical expression or logical operator. Now, I'm going to quickly just draw their symbol in digital electronic, although that's not in this course, but just to give you some basic idea for later. So for example, if you're designing a digital system, if you wanted to show and, you have to design it. This is a circuit design. This is a symbol for and, right? Or if you are doing not, it depends. Or nor, usually we are going to add just one empty circle to the end of it to show nor, or not, or NAND. It depends. Here I added that to and, so this one becomes NAND. If I have or and add that one, or if I have then add that circle, it becomes nor. So these are what we use in digital electronic to design circuit for digital electronic. You don't need them right now in here, but I just gave you a little bit of maybe information to have it just in the back of your mind for next courses, next semesters, and have some idea. Now let's practice them. Logical operator examples. For example, I'm going to say I do have few integers, one of them 12, 5, and minus 4. Each of this is assigned to a variable. One is x, the other y, and the other z. Now I'm going to look at them and validate true and false of this logical statement or logical operator. I'm going to say, you guys help me, okay? I'm going to say x is greater than y. Is it true or false? Somebody answer this. Consider these numbers, substitute them right in here or plot them in x and y. X is 12, y is 5. Is this a statement true or false? Give me some answer. This is true because that's correct. Yes, Marco, this is true. So I leave it true. Now I'm going to look at the other parentheses. Another student, 12 and z is minus 4. Is this true or false? This one is also true. Now I do have true. Remember I said this stands for and. Then I do have true and true. What would be the answer? True and true means true. Let's practice another one. I'm going to plot 12 in here again and 5 in here. Someone kindly tell me, is the first one true or false? Is this a statement true or false? 12 greater than 5. This is correct, true. How about this statement? -4 is greater than 12. Correct. This is false. And now I'm going to say true and false. I'm going to say true. I write it in here. True and false. So far I learned true and true is true. Now true and false is false because it is true. How about here? X is 12, Z is -4. This statement is true or false? 12 is greater than equal to -4 is false. Then I have false. Remember I said this stands for or. Then I have or. How about here? 12 is equal to -4. This is false too, right? Then I would say false or false. False or false is false. And here I've got 12 and I've got -4. 12 is less than equal to -4. True or false? This one is false. And I've got or. How about here? This one is 5 and this one is -4. 5 is not equal to -4. This is true. Then I've got false or true. False or true is true. And the very last one. I know this stands for not. And then X is 12, Z is -4. So someone tell me this is true or false? 12 is greater than equal -4 is correct. This is true. Now, not true means false. Everyone got the point? This is how we validate logical operators. Yes? Okay. Next. So far we practiced them here. Let's put them together for programming. Let me just quickly create one example for you. Program or I gave you if a statement, and let's just maybe practice something for Des Moines, the AND operator. Still, I'm gonna start from here. I'm gonna keep my iOS stream. I'm gonna keep my using namespace. So either I can just customize the one I do have in here, which makes it much easier for you to understand because we are practicing this from the beginning, or I already created one in here too. You can also practice this one. You do have that. Let me create another one in here. Now I'm going to practice AND operator. So I already said if average is 95, then cout congratulations, right? So now I can just put this inside the bracket again. If average is 95, go ahead, practice. Practice with me. Go ahead, say congratulations. Now, I'm going to say else. Either I can leave it as else if, or I can adjust it. Since my purpose is practicing AND operator. In here, I can say if average is greater than 95, remember I had it as else if. Now I can just bring that here and have both of them at the same time. I can say and I don't need to again repeat if because it's already there. And average means at the same time validate both condition is equal to 90 since it is above 97, then see out congratulations. So this is how we can just get rid of all this and just use and simplify the code and make it much easier to understand. So I can say at the same time, first check the average. If it is 95, above 95, I mean greater than 95, and it is equal to 97, then say congratulations. I can now even add more, else, see out, try again. Make a /n and get out of here. So let's try it together and see if it can give me what I'm looking for. I'm gonna say, come on. So since I'm looking for an average to be equal to 97, to first check the true situation, of course, I'll give it 97, 97, and 97. And it is doing the job. It's checking my average. It is definitely greater than 95, and it's meeting the AND condition, which is being equal to 97. That's why it's printing out congratulations. I'm going to close and try with different number to see what will happen. Because I have this A in here, don't worry. So then I'm going to give it 97, 95, and 96. I'm sure it's going to be above 95, but definitely it won't meet the AND condition. Let's see. Since it's still above 95, but both of them are inside the same if, and it's not equal to 97, it will skip the see out congratulation, and it will move to the else condition. So in situation that we do have if both and if and, both conditions must be true. So in here is true and false. So true and false is false. That's why it is skipping the congratulation and it is considering the try again line. Previous one, it was true and true. True and true is true. Then it is printing out congratulations. Make sense? This one is X right here. Make sense? So let me pause right in here, give you a few minutes. So we have practiced logical operation. I gave you some example. What's the application of and? It could be the same if I, instead of and, just change line 20 and change the condition to or. It's going to be exactly the same in terms of using, but in terms of application, it should be different. In order to make sure you understand the difference, definitely I'm going to adjust line 20. So far I said and in a situation that it is true, and true is going to give me true. But if I have true or, this is how I use or. True or true is going to give me true. But true or false, what is going to give me? Let's practice that. So in situation that I do have average being above 95 or 97, means either of them should give me true. Means one needs to be correct. One of this situation needs to be true in order to get true. Let's try. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna have 95 at least as an average or above, but not 97. And see what will happen. So still I'm gonna stay above 95 as an average. So I'm gonna use 95, maybe 90, 93, and 96 to ensure I'm above 95. But I don't want to be Actually, I'm not above, I'm a little bit less. So since I'm not meeting any of this, since I don't have above 95 or equal to 97, it's a skipping congratulation. But if I give it another try, to stay at least true for one of them. True for one of them means have 95, 96, and 95. Definitely is above. So it's true or false. True because it is above 95. Or next one is false because it's not 97, it's 95.33. Then still I'm gonna have true, means it's doing the see out congratulation for me. Make sense? I can have another condition. I can, for example, have if average is 95, and in case I'm gonna use not, for not, I can simply say not equal to 97 or anything else like that. And those are how you can use logical operator in C++ programming. Let's look at the numeric range. Numeric range means defining a boundary. How do I define a boundary? Like, for example, I'm going to say in this example, very similar to what I have on my Visual Studio, I'm going to say if grade is greater than or equal to 0, I'm using logical operator, and grade is less than or equal to 100. Simply means I'm going to stay in a range, in a boundary, which is maximum, minimum. Maximum is 0, maximum is 100 and minimum is 0. That's when we say I'm going to look at a range. I'm going to stay within this range. So then I'm going to validate in here. I'm going to say if average is above or equal to 95, I'm going to use and average is less than or equal less than or equal 97, then say congratulations. Then simply I do have a range. My range in here is my range is 95 to 97. This is another way of using logical operator. Then still any number that I can, maybe I can make this a little bigger, wider, I would say, a little wider to have more room to play around, and go ahead and debug it again. Any number within 95 and 93 still is going to be considered as a true condition, and I'm going to have the cout congratulations. So I'm going to say, the pop-up question come up. So then I'm going to say 95, 96, 97. Definitely I'm going to stay within the range. Means still I am just touching 97, which is between 95 and 99. Since still I'm in the range, still I'm true. Make sense? That's another numeric range definition for this C++ programming. Now, if I'm going to say outside of the range, I simply have to be not like 96 in order to meet the try again. In this example, if it is less than 0 or above or equal to 100, this is the invalid. This is application of OR, which we have practiced multiple times. Another important thing, remember I said, we can never use mathematical notation. Mathematical notation in this example, as you can see, means you cannot have it like 0 being less than grade or equal to grade. Then grade means, for example, considering a grade to be between 0 and 100. This way of definition in C++, this is more understandable as a human, not as a machine. Machine cannot understand this one. You have to one time consider this condition, then consider this condition. That's why in here I mentioned for you, it doesn't work If you have it like a mathematical notation, it should be adjusted based on C++ programming for the Visual Studio to be understandable. Well, there are situations, especially next semester, when you are practicing object-oriented programming, you will be asked at the end of the semester to offer a final project. That final project topic is up to you. You have the freedom to choose your topic. I see many students, they, for example, choose to program a song list, or they choose to program a rental car company, or maybe a restaurant or a hotel, or any situation that we need a menu to choose from, have multiple options to choose one based on our requirement. So in order to be able to program, even as a student here in the university, sometimes you get multiple options for those not non-mandatory courses or optional courses. You do have, for example, some of the courses as an option to choose. Some courses are mandatory, some courses are optional, you can choose from. And that's using menu. So you get option to select one, not the other one. So you can go ahead, define it in C++ programming to give you multiple options. Choose number one, number two, or so on. You can do it using if else if, you can do it using just if nested, or you can do it just simply using if else. There are multiple methods. You can practice either based on your choice. It's not mandatory to use only one method. Another application of all of this stuff that I have practiced with you is, for example, you wanted to validate the password for your computer. You wanted to make sure that nobody is going to get access to your personal computer or personal laptop. In that situation, you can define the correct answer, and you can display list of number or letter, and then you give the user to choose accordingly, to enter the right one accordingly. Or let's say you are going to program a chess game, right? Programming a chess game. That could be another topic for your 1PR3 as well. So in those situations, we use menu programmed or menu driven program organization. These are the application. What I just explained are the application of all of this conditional statement that we have discussed during this session. I just said you wanted to validate the password. In order to validate the password, you have multiple options. Either you can have user interaction, have a pop-up question, like let's say, for example, this is your hotel door. You are gonna just have a password. Nowadays, it's not password anymore, it's card, but before it was a password. You have to just enter the password to open the door, your hotel room. But you can use the same one for log into Mosaic, log into Avenue, log into your computer or whatever. So you can just use a range of number, exactly the way I did in here. You can have it defined like a range of number, and then you can have, so it's a combination of range and valid menu choice means true or false. Again, you can use if else if, and then you can also divide by 0. Let's practice this one to make sure you know how to do so. Let me see, it's gonna be just program 19. I'm going to test the application of actually how to validate some numbers in order to make sure that you are using the right number to open a door. You can use it, for example, to hold a numeric test score or anything like that, right? So simply use namespace like I have in here. IOmanip is not mandatory, but still it doesn't hurt. You can keep it. I'm going to clean up here. and I'm going to leave only the template. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have some constants for grade, some constants number for grade. So I would say, for example, you know how to define constant because we have already practiced. We say const integer. We always must use data type. Let me just close this bracket to still, even you can keep the return 0 or not. Const int, and then give it some variable. Variable could be anything based on your choice. I'm going to say a score, right? I'm going to assign it to a constant number, and definitely you must close it with semicolon. Or you can have multiple number. If you want to have multiple number, don't close it with semicolon. Give it a comma. And then in here, for example, say score 1, or I'm going to even make it simpler. S1 standing for a score 1, S2 for a score 2. I'm going to give another number in here like AD. And let me just push it up, assign to AD. And then I'm going to give it another number right after as S3 being assigned to 70. These are the three numbers that I'm going to use them as constant number. Now it's time. Remember I said we can combine a conditional statement with defining a range. Now I'm going to close this with semicolon and go ahead and define my range. I'm going to say my mean score or mean S. I'm going to be defining it to be 0. This is going to be my minimum score. Another method is just make it integer again or const integer again like this. Const integer, minimum score is 0 and maximum is assigned to, I'm going to have 100, or you can add them to the previous line. But to make it more clear for you, I just put it under two different lines. But again, you can combine these two lines because both of them are integer. So now I do have my numbers and I do have my range. Both of them are defined. Now I'm going to hold a numeric test score. In order to hold a numeric test score, I have to again define another integer, and I'm gonna call it T or test S, standing for a score. This is just a variable. Now I'm gonna get the numeric test score. To get, I have to cout. Cout. I'm gonna give it a message, like for example, enter a number or anything. Like if you wanted to push it down, make sure you add \n. And then right after that, get out of here and either in a single separate line, add another cout or right in here. For example, give it a letter grade as well. Like give it a letter grade. Either will work. And just leave it as colon, some space for that one. Get out of here and semicolon. This is not mandatory. This is just to make it a bit nicer. Still, you can add end L or you can leave it as it is back to back. It's the time to validate the input. I'm going to leave myself validate the input. This is my comment for myself. How do I validate an input? I simply use if statement. Let's practice again. If I already defined the test S as test score, if test S, this is going to be my test score. Remember, I'm going to use just logical operator. So I'm going to say in between them, I'm going to say if test score is greater than equal to, I already defined my minimum to be 0. I'm going to keep it just mean. minimum to be 0, either you can directly say 0 or you can say mean. In this case, I'm going to say mean. Either will be correct. And I'm going to use and. Again, test a score. Another condition is less than equal to my maximum, which is 100. I would say max. I'm done. I don't add semicolon. I keep it like this at this point. This is the option for me to validate my input because I am asking to enter some numbers. I am looking for the numbers to be between this range. My range is 0 to 100, right? Now, I'm going to say if your test score is greater than minimum and is less than maximum, what I am looking for? I'm looking for to assign it to a letter because in here said enter a letter grade. I'm going to assign a letter. How do I do it? So since I'm going to have multiple condition, I open my bracket after if. So I'm going to say nested if, right? If test score, this is a nested if test score is greater than equal to a score, AS, I'm going to call it AS, then I'm going to say, in this case, I called it S1, then I'm going to say S1 instead of AS. Then if it is greater than or equal to S1, what do I want? See out your grade is A. If my number is greater than or equal to 19 or S1, what I want is greater than this. I'm going to get out of if and I'm going to command to see out your grade is A or anything you want. Your grade is A. You are in the A range. You can add, of course, \n and close up right in here. So if test score is greater than S1, which is 19, I'm going to assign it to A. Else if, again, I'm going to open parentheses, test a score. If it's not that, else if it is greater than equal to S2, which is 80, I'm going to assign it to B. Then I'm going to get out of here and see out another message for me. See out what? Your grade is B. And /n and get out of here. And so on. Since I have only 3 numbers, it's easy. I'm going to add the last one as well. I don't want it to make it so long. So I already have else if. Now another else if. Else if test score is again greater than equal to what is my last one, S3 is 17, S3, then see out your grade is C and /n and get out of here. So I'm already done. Since I have already printed all of them, the very last one is gonna be, since I have only 3, only S. There is no if anymore. Else means in here, none of S1, 2, and 3. What will happen if my grade is not S1, is not S2, is not S3? In that situation, I'm gonna say see out your grade is failed. If you are in none of them, say you are failed. Okay, your grade is failed. Or you can say just F, your grade, to make it like others. Your grade is F, you are failed. And close it with /n like the other lines. And that's it. You're done. Now get out of here. This is closing the previous one. This is the bracket open. You have to check the closing to avoid error. Come out of it. Either you can add more information if you would like to, like for example, any error or something, or simply add return 0 and close. In this situation, I'm gonna just stay right in here. So I can simply add this one to here to avoid that error and get rid of this. So now you can see I don't have any issue. All my integers are defined right in here, and I'm ready to debug. This is how I'm validating my input. I define the menu, and I'm validating my input. I define the range. My range is minimum and maximum. In this example, it's going to be 0 and 100. As time, you can adjust this simple example for many, many different applications. I'm going to enter 3 numbers. The ones that are acceptable and are going to give me true statement or actually true situation is 90, 80, and 70. 90, 80, and 70. Oh, this is a stuck in the previous one. Let me just debug again. Test S, there should be one simple error or something. That's why it is stuck. Let me just. So, okay, I need to add another line in here in order to just, I've got the test score to hold. I got the cout right in here. In order to avoid that error, I need to add a cin for the test score as well, because I need to validate. So I already said my integer is test score, then cout the number. Right after the cout, I forgot in here to add a cin. That's why. Cin test score, because I need some number for validating. Test score. Now it should be resolved. Now I have the cin. I define it. I cout a pop-out question. Then I cin the test score. Right after that, I can start the validation with if. Let me see if the concern is resolved. Yep, here we go. Now I can enter a number. For example, we've got 90. As soon as I input 90, it is validating. Since it is 90, it will move to here. It will check it. 90 is S1. So since it is S1, it will give me the grade A. Makes sense? I'm going to try one more time and give it a different number. Like, for example, none of the 90, 80, and 70. If I do so, simply means, like, for example, 60. If I give it 60, it should say F. This is failed. Yep, your grade is F. You're fair. Everybody got the point, guys? Any question? Any question for me? Everyone clear? So this is the way that you can define a menu for yourself, or let's say define a range for yourself, and process it using conditional statement. So far, we had the comparison between two statements. using the logical operation. Now we wanted to compare characters and a string, not only this statement and this statement, just characters and strings. In order to do so, remember, for example, I already defined A, B, C, D, and so. Simply means any character must be enclosed in a single quotation, not double quotation. If I put them inside double quotation, it's gonna be like this. If you haven't heard about ASCII numbers, I'm gonna one more time remind you, as I remember in first session I brought them up. ASCII numbers are numbers that are above, let's say 9, 10, and then they are going to be assigned to a letter. For example, letter A in ASCII stand for 65, right? B stand for 66. How do I find them? I simply go to Google and say like ASCII table, and it will give you the ASCII table. You can just simply set it to image to make it easy for yourself, and either of this could be correct. Let me just show you the one which is a bit more clear. Look at here, for example, this is the ASCII table. You can see some of them are assigned to letters. You can see them from here. I just in the lecture slide show you that. I'm gonna go back. I said A stand for 65, B for 66, A 65, B 66, C in ASCII is 67, and so on. This is what we call it ASCII numbers, means numbers are assigned to a letter. Now, if you're looking at operational, going back to here, then you can say A, if A is less than B, simply means 65 is less than 66, which is true condition, and so on. This is how we compare characters. Characters are not always standing for characters. Sometimes they are standing for numbers if they are used in ASCII format. We have already practiced this one, and I'm gonna even do it right in here as an extra for you. I already defined this. Now let's just, since I already said A, B, C, D, I can just go ahead and say if, another maybe if. I can do right in here. Else if maybe, this is another condition that I'm gonna define right in here. You have to define first the characters. In here I said S1 is equal, or I can just add it right in here. See out this, and right after you have see out A, then see out another see out, just simply another see out, because I just wanted to show the comparison. See out A stand. In this example, I set as 90 or 90 or something like that. Or you can say compare A in the next station like this, a statement like this. Compare A with Z, or in this example, A with B. Because now A is assigned to 90, you can say A is greater than B. In here, I can say, if I want it that way, right after this, see out A is greater than B. Either you can do it like this, or you can do it like mathematical operation and logical operation, combination of mathematical and logical operation. Either of them will work. And so on. Probably you'll notice, since I have two in here, I need to just open a bracket like this and put this two inside the bracket to avoid error. Anytime that you have more than one line, you have to put them inside curly bracket. Otherwise, you are going to get error. So now let's compare a strings. In order to compare a string, you already practiced this one. In order to compare a string, you have to define them. So for example, a string number 1 is Mary. In here, I'm gonna just remove and practice that one with you. I'm gonna define another example. I'm gonna say a string name assigned to, for example, my name. I don't need this, I erase it. This is my name. I'm defining another example. A string name to assigned to, remember, if you are defining any name, you have to enclose it inside. If it is a string, double quotation. If it is a single character, single quotation. So this should be inside the double quotation. That's why I got underline red. A string name to inside here, for example, Kimia GH or so. Now I'm going to compare them. How do I compare them? I simply say name is greater than name 2. But can I do it like this? Do you think I can do it like this? No. In programming, in order to do such a comparison, I have to either do it under cout or under if-else statement. Otherwise, I cannot do it just simply like that. So I have to go ahead, either create something like this, and then if this is name 1, cout name 1 is like how many characters? 2, 3, 4, 5 characters. And then cout name 2 is 6 characters. And then compare them. Name is less than or like greater than or less than based on the example, name 2. So that's one. Or you can say like this. Cout, I'm gonna just erase this one. Maybe I'm a statement. This is my string 1. This is not a string 2. Then I have to cout, compare them. And then you can just call name. Then you can cout is greater than or less than name. So you have to take name and name 2 and just close right in here. This one also you need a semicolon. So this is one method, or you can use the if statement, and this is how you can compare them in order to figure out which one is greater than the other one. Any questions so far? No. So I'm going to leave a comment in here. You can also use conditional statement to compare the strings. There are two methods. Either you can use conditional statement, if else, if nested, if else if, or any of the one that we practice, or you can simply use cout, call the names, and compare them accordingly. Let's look at conditional operator. So far we practiced if else, and now we are going to look at different expression. So this is, for example, my first expression, second expression, and third expression. If I have multiple, very similar to the digital operator, being true or false of one expression can impact the other one. That's why we say conditional operator. Means operator is going to first look at my first expression. If x is less than 0, then it will look at y, then it will look at z, and so on. That's what we call it, conditional operator. Very similar to the situation that we have parentheses. So operator is going to just compare, or let's do the math based on the priority of the characters or the mathematical operator included in the line. If there is parentheses, it will always consider the parentheses. As you can see it right in here. If there is no parentheses, it will go through inside and it will finish one statement, and sometimes one statement is supposed to be fed to the next statement. If the first one is true, like the one that I showed you before, then it will print out congratulations. If it is not, like for example, above 90, above 95 for the previous example, it won't print out congratulations. It will skip it and it will move to the else situation. That's what we call it, conditional operator. Very similar example in here, since I already practiced that one. Most of this slide I already practiced through the other example, but still I'm going to review with you to remind everybody. This is very similar to the constant number in the previous example I just displayed. Here I am looking at some pay rate. Hourly pay rate is given as a constant number. Minimum billable hours is 5 hours, and I have some hours worked, and I have some total charge. Very similar to what I did for a different example for calculation of, let's say, for assigning scores to grade. Is exactly the same method but different application. So in there I was defining 3 grades and I was assigning each of those grades to a letter. Here I'm having some constant hourly pay rate, 5 hours, to be like my bill hours, and double, which is the data type, 4 hours, and charges for both of them, which is the total, to calculate the total charge. Very similar to the previous example, I need an user interaction in there for total, for test score, in here for hours. And then I have to calculate the hours based on the numbers in here, and being able to display the characters. Make sure that if you want the display to be adjusted based on your requirement, use fixed, show point, set precision. These are extra examples, very similar to what I just practiced with you, just for your reference. And the last one, which is something that I want to practice from scratch with you, is switch statement. Remember I said we have different methods for conditional statement. We practice if only, if else, if else, if else if, and now I'm looking at switch. There are situations that I'm gonna read one statement and then switch to another statement. Means another condition. Switch by itself is a keyword, guys, and I'm gonna use it. It's very similar to if else if. So any situation that you are in an if else situation, if else if, you can use either if else if or switch, right? Either of this. Now let's practice. How do I use it? I'm gonna move to Visual Studio and create the template for switch. You can define any of your variables, any variables, and then simply say switch. Switch is going to be a conditional statement. It's not a data type. Switch, very similar to when you define if, you open a parenthesis. For switch, we do the same, right? We must use parentheses again to define the switch. And right after that, for example, if I wanted to start from scratch, let me first give you one example. For example, I'm going to say char. Char standing for character. We defined it as a data type. I'm going to give it one variable, which is choice. Then I'm going to see out. I'm putting it into a complete example to make sure everybody is learning. I'm going to see out few letters like enter A, comma, B, comma, C, right? These are my letters, and I'm gonna just close right in here. And then I'm gonna get the cin command from the user. I'm gonna say, since I said char choice, I'm gonna say cin my choice. I need some information for choice. Then I'm gonna start switching, right? So in order to switch, that's why I first define this variable choice. I'm gonna say switch choice. Switch choice, right? Right after this, very similar to if, I must open and close bracket. This is the template. I'm going to define few cases like the template in here. I said switch. I included my variable. In this example, I said choice. Now I'm going to define the body of my switch. Case again is a keyword. I must use it. So I have to say case. So switch case. Remember I said A, B, C. So then I'm going to use case A. Since it is a single character, I have to use single quotation, not double quotation. So I have to say case A. I'm going to maximize to make sure you can see clearly. So my case A, colon, not semicolon, colon. This is my case A. See out something accordingly. I'm going to say see out. You entered A or anything. You entered A backslash N. This is my first case and close it with semicolon. So I'm just trying to train you how to define the body of switch. We say switch, we define our expression, or if it is an just variable, the variable inside the parentheses, we open brackets and close it, and then we start defining different cases inside the bracket. Case is a keyword. We cannot adjust it or edit it. It must be always lowercase. And my case too. Case, again, single quotation. Since I have B in there, I use B. What is my case B? For case B, I'm gonna use cout, another message, very similar to previous one, but say you entered B, and then backslash N and get out of here. And since I have three letter, I have C as well, so I define case C. Case C, I'm gonna say cout, you entered C. Simple to understand for everybody. Still, anyone who needs extra, feel free to ask. So I define all my cases. After I define my cases, this is the body and a structure of how do I use case how do I use switch and case practically. So I use switch, still it is considered as conditional statement, then I use case. Right after that, before I get out of the bracket, I close it with default. I must always include default. So I should say default colon, right? Uh, After that, still you need to define a default situation. So I'm gonna say cout, what is my default? I'm gonna say my default is gonna be like, for example, you did enter A, B, C, D, or you didn't enter A, B, C, D. Default is if you do not have any of them. So if you didn't enter any of A, B, C, then if you didn't enter A, you didn't enter B, you didn't enter C, it should see out the default situation for you. And then right in here again, I'm gonna add backslash N and close it. That's it. I'm gonna minimize to make sure everyone can see how I use the switch. This is the application of switch case. And how do you use switch case in programming? You start with your library or header file using namespace like the one I have in here. Start with main, define whatever variable, constant, anything that you have for that certain project, and then start with the switch. So one more time, switch is very similar to if else if. Since I have no error, everything looks fine, I'm gonna debug to show you the results on the screen. Okay, so if I enter either of A, B, C, I'm gonna have one of these cases. If I don't, it should show me line 19, which is like default. So let me have A and see what will happen. If I enter either of this, it will say you entered A, you entered B, you entered C. You didn't enter. This is like the default situation. It is just checking all of them. It will consider all of them back to back, all the choices that I have. If I don't enter any of this, A, B, C, then it won't show any of this, right? So I'm gonna try that. Like, for example, D. If I just say D, the only thing that it will show me is just the default. You didn't enter any of A, B, C. That's why it's just a default. But if I enter either of A, B, C, then it will print out all these cases for me. Make sense? Still, that might be a question. Can I make it more accurate to if I enter A, just tell me you entered A? Yes. You can add more detail to it to just become more customized based on your application. I'm gonna pause. Anyone who has question, feel free to ask anything. We already practiced this one. I gave it to you as a example. The very last thing in order to close up is break a statement. Break a statement. Usually when we want to just give a pause inside the code that we are using conditional statement, we use break. Break is helping me to get out of any switch cases. Remember I just said I can just make it more customized. Now I teach you how. When I debug this code, I entered A, also I just said A, which was one of the cases. All three cases plus the default, it was on the screen. How do I make it more accurate? I add a break in here. If I add a break in here, after I have any of those cases, then it will break right after that. It won't move to the line 22, which is default. Then it doesn't show me the default. So it makes it more detailed for me. It makes it more clear. Let's debug again and show you the application. Break is a keyword. You have to type it exactly as it is. So remember last time I said A, I'm gonna do the same thing. Remember last time, since I did not have break, as soon as I entered the letter A, not only three cases was print out, the default was there too. But now I only have the cases, not the default. Make sense? Why I use break? So this is the application of the break as I just show you right in here. And in this case, I think the only one that I have left, let me just look at a little bit about the blocks and a scope. So generally, this is just definition. Remember I said, for example, we are defining a variable and that variable must be in detail defined later. So that's what we call it, a scope of a variable in a block. Like for example, choice is a variable. A scope of this variable are these cases. That's what we call it. A scope of a variable is the block which is defining how minimum years and years are just used inside this block, right? Years, and these are my variables, and these are used under conditions. So second. Can you hear me, guys? Do you mind confirming? Are going to define them, we must enclose them inside the bracket the way that I just did right in here. Another thing that I want you to consider is of like two variables. Let's practice this example. And right after this, we can close the session. Thank you very much for confirming. So I'm going to practice the very last example for this part to ensure everybody has enough information and practice. So I'm going to create another program and use two variables. Let me just put this aside. We don't need it anymore. I'm going to maximize the screen to make sure everyone can see. In this program, I'm using two variables with the name number, right? Name number means my variable name is going to be number. So how do I define it? Template is as always. I'm going to start with defining my variable. I said I want it to be number, so I'm going to choose integer number. Simply integer number. Then I'm going to have a pop-up message, cout. Practice this with me. It's going to help you to kind of review everything before end of this chapter. So I'm going to say enter a number which is greater than 0. Somehow I'm defining range as well, right? So enter a number greater than 0. I'm going to create some space. And I'm going to get out of the quotation and close it with semicolon. This is my first line. So now I'm going to see in that certain number. Since I say enter, it simply means I have to give option to the user to enter that number. Do this one. Now, remember we practice conditional statements. So I'm going to use if, you may do the same. Make sure that you open parentheses. Remember I said you need to use your description, or in this case you are using variable number, then use number. If number is greater, my condition is that number must be greater than 0. If the number is greater than 0, then go ahead and just have some condition. Since I'm going to have multiple condition, I open curly bracket and I'm going to say another variable, define another variable, int number. Another variable named number. Inside, if number is greater than 0, say int another variable as number. Give me another variable as number. Then see out this new number because I just defined another one. See out new number. New number. Or any other message you want. I'm going to say enter another number or new number. And I'm going to give it just some room in here and close it with semicolon. Next, what do I want? I'm going to now ask the user to see in that number, then see in, again, number. I lost my connection again. Apologize. It's rainy in our area. And for some reason, internet connection is unstable. Apologize. That's out of my control. So I'm going to continue. So I have another number in here and I'm going to now see out. Remember, I added another number. Now I'm going to see out the second number. The second number, whatever the second number is. And now I'm going to get number because I want to take that number and then in the, right? I'm going to get out of this if statement and then see out another message. See out what was my first number. And I'm going to just in here say see out one message in here. First number is your first number, whatever the first number is, was get out of here and read the first number. And again, and very similar to the previous one. Previous one is for the second number, and now I did it for the first number. So I'm gonna remove this extra space, and I'm gonna show you the whole code for your reference. So in this example, I'm trying to use two variables with the same name number. One variable is out of the if statement. Variable name is the same variable. Another one is exactly number, but within the if statement. I'm going to make some space for you within the if statement. So I created two variables with the same name as number. And now one time I'm going to enter the number for the first number and then go inside the, if that number is a positive one, means greater than 0, then I'm going to enter another number and then I'm going to see out the first number as well. Let's do that. Since I have no error, everything looks fine. I'm ready to debug. Here we go. It should ask me for enter a number greater than 0. Suppose I'm going to give it 5. Since it is greater than 0, it's asking means, if it is asking for a new number, simply means it is passing the line 12 because the condition is met, number is greater than 0. So now it's asking for the new number. New number, let's say 6. And now second number is 6 as it was asked in line 18. And first number is 5 as it was asked in line 20. This is for the true situation. If I give it another shot, but this time give it maybe a negative number, it shouldn't enter the like conditional statement. Suppose that I'm gonna give it anything greater than 0, maybe -2. Even it won't enter conditional statement starting in line 12. It just naturally skip all this and it will move to line 20 and it will print out only the last line, which is your first number was -20. At this point, any of you who has any question, feel free to ask. Any question from this code? Any question from the previous codes? Feel free to ask. Thank you very much for being here. And this is it about chapter 4.